You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast, and very excited to welcome Black Belt Eagle Scout Katherine Paul, known as KP. Katherine, KP, welcome on Something Rather Than Nothing.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure. And for this episode, we have Benita Rancliffe, who is BBES enthusiast, music lover, and has helped put this show together. Benita, welcome onto the show again, and to the Something Rather Than Nothing audience. Yeah, it's a great pleasure, and KP, it's great to talk. It's great to talk to you, and as some fans may know of your music, there's a lot going on with a new album coming out, and a tour that looks dazzling coming up in the near future. And Benita and I were talking about this, just really feeling excited at this moment at the beginning of 2023, and just seeing your great art stretch out. So Benita, we were talking about the tour and album, and
yeah, so you have a new album coming out and entering into this year, going out on tour. I am so super excited to meet you, even though it's kind of via online format in this instance. I just wanted to share kind of a big thank you to you. Obviously, we don't know each other really, but your art kind of played an instrumental position in an interaction that I had with my daughter. So I'm super excited to meet you. She is Yakima. Her father's Yakima, and I can always kind of gauge her kind of emotional state by the music that she's listening to. She listens to a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap, and I was walking by her room one day. I was like, okay, is today a Tupac day or like a Polo G day? Kind of. She's 14, right? And I heard your music in there. And I kind of stopped and I was like, hey, what's up? Like, vibe change. And she's like, I want you to come and sit with me and listen to this artist. And so I kind of sat down with her and listened to the music. And she's like, I want you to know that like, this is how I see myself. And I was like, what do you mean this is how you see yourself? And I think it was Soft Stud, that song. She was like watching the video and she's like, look at her shirt. Like, that's how I see myself. And I think it said something like, indigenous, queer, feminist. And I was like, oh, okay, this is how you see yourself. And so I just wanted to let you know, like, it was a huge catalyst in this very precious moment that I had with my daughter. And so you kind of being on the precipice of releasing this new album and going out on tour, I'm so super stoked. So thank you for releasing your music and your creativity out there to the world.
Thank you. I'm going to cry. I can't believe you're saying this to me. I'm like sitting in this room. I'm like, wait, this is real conversation I'm having right now. That's really special. It's awesome that you were able to have that beautiful moment with your daughter. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, 100%.
And that's part of the excitement. But well, and one of the things I wanted to ask KP is I know you're connected. I'm originally from the East Coast, but I've been in the Pacific Northwest for 11, 12 years, and I know you're a connection to the region. But thinking about World Tour, what's that mean to you when it comes to your music and what's in there for for Paris and for the world, and what your expectations, what do you think might happen with what you sing and what you say?
I've traveled a lot in my life. I've been to Europe before. I've been all over. I've been to Africa. I've been to South America, but I've never toured and presented my art. I've never toured and presented my vulnerability other than like in North America. And so I don't know what it's going to be like. Because most of the time when I travel, there's a language barrier. I'm trying to like understand people. It's a little bit hard. So I'm curious, like, how my music is going to translate into different countries with different languages. And I think that's the one cool thing though about sound, is that sound is something that I feel like is easier to understand rather than like lyrics. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to travel. I love traveling, and I'm excited to meet new people. And I'm a little bit nervous that no one's going to show up because I've never been over there to play shows. But we'll see. It's my first time, and yeah, this is something that I've wanted to do for a while, is to go on tour other than like in the US and in Canada. And I was supposed to go on tour. I was supposed to do this like multiple times. It just hasn't happened. And so I think that is a little bit there's a little bit of this like, oh, I was supposed to do this, that sort of feeling, and finally it's coming. So there's some of those feelings as well. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, this sounds exciting, and people will show up. We don't know each other, and I don't have the diagnostics on the ground, but the people will show up there. Don't worry about that. I wanted to ask you, one of the questions asked in the show has to do with identity and how we see ourselves and who we are. So I've asked the question before. I've asked it different ways. I'd be like, when you were born, were you an artist? And I've asked the question about identity and seeing yourself different ways. But my question is formed now is, when did you see yourself as an artist? When did you see yourself as an artist? And sometimes people say, I've always felt like I don't know how to breathe different air. And other folks are like, 15, So when did you see yourself as an artist?
I think I realized that I was an artist when I was in, I think, the second grade. And I got really into drawing. I got really into just like kind of how lines form. And I was quite good at drawing. And back in like the second grade, I think people, like the kids would always be like, you're good at drawing, or like, it was something that people would tell me too. So I think that's the first time when I was actually like, you know what, I think I'm an artist because I can do this, and people like it, and I think it looks nice. But my dad he's a carver, and he does Coast carving and painting. And so I've always had that surrounding me, and I've always like seen him carve these lines, seen him paint. And I guess it's just sort of growing up like in an artist household, it just was normal. And so I think it was easy maybe for me to pick up a pen because I saw my dad doing it like everyday practice, like every day drawing things out, carving things out. And so I had this like general idea of what that kind of art was. But yeah, I think that was, I remember drawing this picture of this blonde lady. It was like this princess or something. And I don't know why we were doing it. I just remember, I remember it. And it was, I think it was the second grade. No, maybe it was the fourth grade. I think it might have been the fourth grade. I think Mrs. Middleton was my teacher, and I think that was the fourth grade. But it was grade school when I was realizing that I like art. I can do art. And I think that sort of grew throughout high school. So my dad, he would teach this carving class at our high school, and I took his carving class. And then because it's like a family thing, I just sort of started doing it. Like my dad and I had an art show together when I was in high school, and then I just sort of continued these lines, but that sort of art never really stuck with me. Like I don't do really carving right now, but I think I got a taste of like what art could be in your life, and I think that's what honestly like made me latch on to music, is because I saw this art in music, and I saw something different, and I wanted to go down that direction and that path for that passion.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And your contact with it, I find it fascinating just to see the different experiences and how it can become encompassing with identity. I see myself in recent years being more engaged with art and creating art and seeing that as my identity, which has been such a significant change in my view of how I see things and color and things like that. So I'm always really interested in, how that happens and how, and how that feels. You're an artist. You spend a lot of time creating art. I want to mention your album At the Party with My Brown Friends. This is an album for me that when I first listened, there's certain albums, because I'm a bit of an obsessive type, particularly with sounds and songs and playing albums, where like I get into this pattern where I play it every day for like a set amount of time. So yours was like in the 4 to 5 month range of it, playing it every day. I just really adore that album, and it's very uh, it's very it's I found it tough to describe because it's inviting to be around the music. It's very inviting, and I think that like being around it was why I'd be like, today I want that again, and I want that again. So you're an artist. You work very hard at creating art and thinking about art. But one of the conceptual questions asked on the show is, what is art? What is it that you're trying to do? What is art itself?
Mm. Yeah, I had to think about this because you sent over the questions, and I was like, these are big questions. They could, but and then I was like, maybe I'm psyching myself out. Maybe it's just easy. So then I
That's
just
also
started,
possible.
yeah. So then I just started thinking, well, like I feel like for me, art is something that you care about, and it's something that's meaningful. And this is just for me, because maybe I see some artists that are just doing some sort of like smashing of objects, and that's art, and maybe they don't care about the objects. But for me, I think that art is putting meaning into something and having care for it, and coming at it in a good from a good place. I think like when I was thinking about that question, I was like, go simple. That's what simply means to me is, but then I feel like care like has a lot of emphasis on it, and it's broad, it's expansive. Like care has to do with so many different types of feelings in one's being. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that word being particularly important, that really stands out uh, to me. Um,
But
Benita, you
that
and I have some discussions about the role of yeah. One of the things I want to say about Benita too is, I mean, like with the music, like I know with a lot of art, we're friends, and I know I really connect with her love of punk and the vibrancy around that, and I know it's like in talking about it has a particular role of what it intends to do. But I know Benita, you had a follow up question to the what is art.
yeah, and Ken and I have talked about this before, like in creating for ourselves. Um, you know, mine see when I create, it's always very internal, right? It's like kind of for myself. And Ken has talked about like he creates for other people. And so if you think about like what is art, you said it was kind of like internal, like it's a form of care. What is the role of art then, or how do you see the role of art in kind of our broader human consciousness?
Okay. So you said it's a form of care, but I said I care about it.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
So it's interesting. I do see it as a form of care. Yeah, yeah. But I was saying it's something. If I do art, I'm putting care into it. But I guess it could be a care for myself as well. It could be reciprocal. Can you repeat your question though? Because I started thinking about that, and then you asked this really big question. I was like, wait.
What do you see is the role of art?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I think art has a lot of roles. I think about it for my community where I live is art brings people together. Like in the Swinomish Indian tribal community, like I see art bringing people together. And so for me in this little pocket of the world, I think that's what it means. But I feel like it has a lot of meanings too, based on wherever you live, like it can carry messages. It can be very, very broad to shift things in the world, but it can also be, I think, like also very small and very much intimate moment between people as well. So I don't know if that answers your question. But yeah, so maybe I tell you a little bit about where I'm from. The Swinomish Indian tribal community is this really small people. We're a sovereign nation in Northwest Washington State, and so I live in a really small community. This is where I grew up, and I used to live in Portland, but then I moved back during the beginning of the pandemic to take care of my parents. And so I've been living here and been being a part of this community again. And one of the things I'm thinking about is this last year in June, our community came together and we did a mural for Pride Day. So we have like a Swinomish Pride Day for our LGBTQ plus community members. And we came together and we like made this really beautiful salmon, these two salmons that are one of our tribal members, Raven Edwards, designed, and it has really, really colorful. And when I think about art, I think about things like that bring people together. And you're coming together, you're trying to heal, you're trying to love one another. So I think that's what I think of first when I think of the world, because for me, the world is my community.
Yeah. Thank you so much, KP. What can you tell us about the land, the water, the sky? So with the title of that's the new album's title. My mind's big on all those type of things. What can you tell us about the land, the water, the sky, your new album coming out?
It's incredible.
Yes.
It's the best album I've ever made. And I'm really, really excited to share it with people. Have you heard it? I don't know who gets to hear it or not.
I haven't heard it, no.
Okay. So yeah. So it'll be out soon though. So you'll hear it soon. And some of the songs have come out. There's another song that's going to come out this week. But the land, the water, the sky, I wrote this over the last couple of years, and the land, the water, the sky, the name of the album came from the song Don't Give Up. At the very end of the song, I sing the land, the water, the sky. And I wrote that song during a residency in Coast Salish territory at Hedgebrook. And I attended the residency right before the pandemic, and then I was able to attend again in November of not this year, but the year before. And so I started that song in the first time I was at the residency, but I just couldn't finish it. And then for some reason, when I came back to that residency again, it was still lingering, and we had this moment together, me and the song. And I was realizing like how important the land is to me and my mental health and my healing and my journey, how important, the water is, how important the sky is, and how much it I guess is interconnected to my relatives, past, present, future in this specific area. And so that title came from, those lyrics, but it really is just, I think, a theme for, why I keep going on in this life, and the importance of living and being kind to myself, and really trying to support myself, and in like a self-care healing process of I don't know, just of getting up every day and living your life, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the land, the water, the sky, it's gonna be out into the world. And I treated every song, I've never done this before, like it was gonna be the single of the
Mm,
album. And so it took a really
yeah.
long time to
Yeah.
make. But every song I was like, this is going to be the single. This is going to be the single. This is going to be the single. And so I never really, in terms of like process of like craft of songwriting, I've never really done that before. I haven't written very many things, so I'm still in this process of like of art, of
Yeah.
like figuring out the art side of it. Like this is a new process that I tried with this new work of art. Was okay, I'm going to put every single thing that I have into each song. Whereas I feel like the other albums, like it was kind of like a diary entry of a certain time in my life. But this is too, it's still like, it's very, documentary style of what of the last, couple years or so. But I feel like the energy around this album is a lot more intentional. Um, so yes.
Yeah, I noticed one thing I wanted to mention. I noticed that there's a show in Eugene after your Portland show that was very accessible. Like the cost to go there is very accessible, part of a larger arts project down there too. So I know you'll be starting off your tour Portland, then I believe Eugene right after that. The show that I mentioned.
Yes. Yeah.
That's that. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played Eugene very many times, and it just so happened to work out where they wanted me to play this festival, and then we were trying to set up some regional dates for the release, like a release show kind of regional thing. And so I think it happened pretty perfectly that it was around the release date.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Before we get into one of the bigger questions, I just actually wanted to mention, you mentioned about like, I was hearing you talk about like different types of art and different types of art pieces and however small. I was at a comic book store yesterday, a book with pictures in Portland, and they had an indigenous zine. It was about comics, representation within comics themselves. It was put out a couple years ago, but it was just before you even opened it. It had just this power because there was a representation on the front, which was non-natives represented and native folk, and then it was native representations by the artist and written. And on one side was this kind of like face of sorrow and horror at misinterpretation. The other one was much more positive. So the experience of it as you flipped it was one of being like, oh, okay, that's horrible and that's terrible. But then there was the more inspiring stories. And it was a quick history of like major comics, indigenous representation. And it was like 8 pages. And I'm like, ah, art. That's how immediacy it's accessible and it's right there. I just saw that zine in my head when you were talking about just even the smaller pieces. Um, Big question, KP. Titular question of the show. Why is there something rather than nothing?
To keep going, I think. You know,
You said it. That's your answer.
I love that it was.
I just want to say I was talking. Yeah, I was talking to my partner earlier. I was like, there's a question that's like, why is there something rather than nothing? And then he was like, you should just say like one word,
Yeah.
Is that something rather than nothing?
He's onto it. And the problem is, talking to you now and him, you're both onto it, which we'll cut this out. I can edit it. Once you're onto it, I don't know what to do with that, because what people really want to see when you ask that is, okay, they schmuck. Like, I don't want to deal with it. But there's always this pause, and I always feel that somebody is gonna catch on like you do, so I might not let the secret out there. The other thing is I'm a huge Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fan, and Douglas Adams and his book Life, the Universe, and Everything. And the answer to why is there something rather than why does the universe exist is the number 42. So you can also just say the other easy way out with the one, and the answer is you could say 42, and I say you won. That's the winning answer if you're into all that. KP, how do you want people to connect with you? Your art, your music, tour, all the things. People want to connect with you. Where should they go to find you and experience your art and that?
I love connecting in person. So if people come to my shows, that's the best way. But if people want to connect in an online space, I am most active on my Instagram. And I have like a Twitter, I have a Facebook. I don't really go on there very much. It's the Instagram that I'm on. So yeah, I'd say if you want to connect online, find me on Instagram. It's just at Black Belt Eagle Scout. Or else I am going to be on tour a lot this year. So maybe I'll be coming to a city near you.
Yeah. I know Benita and I will be able to check out your show and see your shows, and really excited to hear about these events, and actually, just like I told you from the beginning, being able to chat with you about these topics. And even though you got sneaky onto something rather than nothing, that's totally cool, because philosophers are just tricksters, right? Like if there's an idea of like you can get away like asking annoying questions and just keep going through life or do a podcast around it, then just do it. There's some license to it. But I also want to mention, Benita, I didn't even know the story you told, and just the experience with your daughter. And I gotta tell you, KP, I heard a podcast recently. I think it was I might have this wrong, Broken Boxes podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Ginger's
oh
podcast.
My gosh, I just lost my mind. I was listening too early. I woke up early this morning and I was playing it and I was listening to it, and you had played this song. She hadn't heard a song played, more intimately online, and her reaction, I was like, that's why people make art, because she's like, I don't know what to do. Like it was just so open and real. I'm like, that's why we do this. And I just wanted to really let you know I appreciated it and appreciated the heck out of that show and that recording. And Benita too, sharing, about the experience of where, like, don't be afraid to talk about how art is like makes a shift in a day, like changes things in a different direction. And that's kind of why we get excited to talk to you and to bring you onto the show and just learn some more. So I just wanted to thank you, Black Belt Eagle Scout, Katherine Paul, so much for coming on to this show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
thank you for letting me join in. I'm so appreciative of
Benita,
this stuff. 100%.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
and I appreciate you. Yeah, Benita, as a friend and art enthusiast, and hopefully we'll be the excited ones, and other friends that we'll be bringing. Will be the excited ones,
Jumping in the back of your show
Basquiat and be yelling in the crowd, so you know where the attention is coming from. Be safe in your travels. Best of luck with everything. Great pleasure meeting you and chatting with you. Truly honored.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care.
is something rather than nothing.